Are you struggling to make profits with your crypto grid bots? Well, then you should keep watching this video because I'm going to show you 7 powerful indicators you can use to create more profitable crypto grid bots at the best time possible, and also find precise ranges so that you can quickly find the highest price and the lowest price and then set your grids using that range. So the indicators that we are going to go through are the ATR Percentile, the Supertrend, EMAs and SMAs, Bollinger Bands, and also Fibonacci Retracements. And if you stay until the end, I'm also going to provide you a free crypto grid bot template that you can use to calculate the high price and the low price. If you want to use a preset, you can also use it to manage your overall crypto portfolio. You can also do pair research, and if you want to follow a step-by-step system, it will also be provided inside of that template as well. So stay tuned if you would like to check that out. Crypto grid bots can help you automate your trading over medium or long periods of time without you having to give a lot of input or spend a lot of time with them once you set up the bots, but you do, however, have to monitor them from time to time. To maximize your grid bot potential, you need to use the right indicators to set price ranges, stop losses, take profits, and also choose the best time to start your grid bot. Now we'll cover some of the indicators that I find to be some of the best for crypto grid bot. You can, however, use others, but this video will give you an overall understanding of how to use 7 indicators to set up your bots so that you can make more profits. So let's get started. Now let's start with the ATR, which is average true range, and this is an indicator that measures the volatility of an asset, which can be useful in setting minimum and maximum price ranges. A higher ATR value suggests greater volatility and a wider price range, while a lower ATR value suggests less volatility and a narrower price range. In other words, you can use the ATR to help you analyze the risk level associated with a particular asset or trade, in this case whatever cryptocurrency you are looking at. A higher ATR value can indicate that the trend has higher potential for profit, but it can also come with greater risks. On the other hand, a lower ATR value may indicate a lower risk trade, but with potentially lower profits. There are multiple ways to use the ATR, but for price ranges, we can multiply the ATR value for a number such as 3, 3.5 or 3.9. There isn't a multiplier that fits all, but those are general good recommendations. You can also multiply the ATR value by a percentage. For example, if you want to set a stop loss where you would lose a maximum of 5% or 10%, then you can also multiply that percentage. So here we are considering an ATR multiplier of 3.5%. Now let's take a look at a chart. This is a 4-hour chart for Cardano and Tether USD on the Binance exchange. If you want to add the ATR, all you need to do is click on indicators here. If you are using TradingView, then type in ATR and it would be this one, which has no author. Then you click on that. I'm not going to because I have already added that in here in the chart. And as you can currently see, this is an ATR of 14 using RMA. But basically, if you want to see the ATR for a longer time frame, you can go to the settings and then change the length right here from 14 to 20 or 30 if you want the ATR to consider a longer time frame. I'm going to keep with the default value, which is 14. Now here we have the price for Cardano, which as you can see at the moment is 0.36 or around that price. So let's copy that value to our calculator or sheet. As you can see, the value is changing a lot, so let's just consider 0.36. So here in price 0.36. Now the multiplier, as you can see, is 3.5. Then we will need the ATR value. So let's look at the chart right here at the ATR, which is around 0.000 0.0079. So let's put that value right here, 0.0079, and now let the calculator do its thing, and boom, we have a price range right here. So using a 3.5 multiplier, then multiplying the ATR for 3.5, and then using this value, which is the result of the multiplication, to calculate a higher price and a lower price. So what that means is that with the current volatility and using a 3.5 multiplier, you could expect the Cardano price to reach 0.38. So around this value right here, which would be around 5% increase in price, but you could also expect a lower price of 0.33, which would be also around minus 5% or a 5% decrease. So as you can see, this gives you a range that you can use, for example, for a grid bot. You could use that range and then, for example, set your grids right here, and the maximum price that you've just calculated or the higher price that you calculated with the ATR would be your higher price for your grid bot, and the lower price would be your lower price for your grid bot. The ATR percentile is an indicator that looks at historical ATR values and shows you the current ATR as a percentile ranking. This can help you determine whether the current volatility is high or low relative to previous levels. What it means is that in the chart you will be able to spot out areas where the price might fluctuate more, meaning that it will hit your grids more often, or you can also spot areas where there will be less volatility. This can help you determine whether the current volatility is high or low relative to historical levels. What this means is that on a chart you can spot areas where there's less volatility and the price might have less swings, which means that it won't hit your grids as often and the bot won't make as much trades, while the areas that have higher volatility will have more trades because the price goes up and down more often and therefore hits your grids more often as well. If you want to make money with volatility, which is often the goal with grid bots, you can set your own rules to only enter when the ATR percentile is above a certain level, or you can even take a look at a longer term and see what is happening to the ATR value, if it is decreasing or increasing, by taking a look at multiple bars that you will later on see on the chart. So this would be very helpful during the pair research phase. You can not only use it to set up the number of grids, so if there's more volatility you can consider using more grids, if there's less volatility you can consider using less grids, but also, of course, as I said, you can also use it to select a pair if you want to trade pairs that have higher volatility to make more profits in a sideways market. You can also avoid getting stuck with pairs that have low volatility and may end up not touching the grids you set up on your bot. The colors can also help you visualize that level and you can change them on the indicators settings. Now let's take a look at how you can apply the ATR percentile on a 1-day RIF Tether US chart, and this is for the Binance exchange. We are using the 1 day, but you can also use other periods as well, depending on what you are trying to determine. I just think that the daily chart is better to spot areas and the 4-hour might be better to take a look at the values themselves. As you can see, this is the ATR percentile rank. To add the ATR percentile, you can go to indicators, start typing ATR percentile, and it will be this one, CM ATR percentile rank by Chris Moody. I've already added that in, which is right here below the volume and also the price. So here you can see that the areas that have low volatility also show a lower number on the ATR. For example, right here you see the ATR decreasing, and as you can see on this area where the ATR is very low, there's almost no swing or no price movement up and downwards, whereas with areas that have higher volatility, so as you can see right here, volatility starts increasing. So let's take a look at this area right here. As you can see, this has pretty high volatility, and you can spot it pretty good right here by looking at the bars and also the colors. The green by default represents the highest ATR values, then comes the yellow and then the orange, and then blue would be much lower. But you can see right here that on this area there was much higher ATR ATR and more volatility as well, which means that if you had a grid bot on this range right here represented by the blue box, then you would make much more profits than on an area that has lower volatility, because right here when there was this huge green candle, the price fluctuated quite often and therefore it would eat a lot of different grids. So let's draw some in right here. Imagine that these are your grids, and obviously, as you can see, if you had a setup like this on this area right here where there's very low ATR, you would have almost no trades. Whereas on this area, when the ATR starts going up, you would have a lot of trades. It would eat this area right here, then it would go up until this grid here, then it would go down again and hit all of those grids again, go up, go down again, go up, and then it would eat the grids multiple times, and therefore your bot would make more trades and accumulate those profits. As I said, you can take a look at the areas that have the higher ATR value. If you want to take a look at the values, you can just slide through right here on the ATR percentile and take a look at the values. So right here, as you can see, the max value is usually around 100 and the lowest is 0. And then you have some interesting values right here, which is the 60, the 20 and the 100 for reference. And of course, as this takes into account the historical ATR values, you can look at this to find relations or divergences instead of just looking at the raw ATR number. As I said, for example, right here you see the bars going down. That means that the volatility is decreasing. Then you see an increase in volatility, but then it drops again suddenly. And here again you see a slow increase of volatility leading into a much higher volatility zone where again there's a huge green candle and then the price fluctuates a lot, which would be a great place or a great price range right up here to deploy your grid bot. While using the ATR percentile, you can also go into the settings right here, and then if you want to change the input for the ATR length, the number of bars it uses to calculate the percentage values, but you can also change the colors on style if you want to give it a different color to make it easier to spot high levels of ATR and more volatility or levels of lower volatility. So for example, on the ATR length, you could change it to 14, and then you would see different values here on the ATR, but you can leave it at default for now, which would be 10, and that's it. Now let's take a look at the Supertrend indicator. The Supertrend is usually considered a trend following indicator that uses the average true range or the ATR, which we talked about previously, to create a line around the current price. This line can also be used to set buy and sell orders, and it even prints a buy and sell signal. A green line represents an uptrend and the red line a downtrend. While this works well for trending markets and for price ranges, it might not work well for sideways markets, at least for trading signals. You can still use it for ranges or to know if a coin is on an uptrend or downtrend. You can use the price that sits on those lines as a range for your grid bot, or use a percentage below or above, because sometimes the price might go a bit below the red line and still turn out to be an uptrend. With this indicator, you should also consider using trailing on your grid bot to keep trading upwards if the coin does end up increasing in price, or maybe you can use the buy level as a reference and then set a higher price and more grids to catch bigger price movements and therefore a wider range for grid trading. Now let's take a look at a 4-hour chart of Cardano and Tether USD in the Binance exchange to take a look at the Supertrend. So here, as you can see, the Supertrend draws these lines and also shows a green color below the price or between the price and the line, and a red color between the price and the red line. Right here at the beginning of each one of the lines, it prints a buy signal or a sell signal right here to indicate a sell sell. As you can see, this performs well when the price is trending upwards or downwards, especially if the trend is, let's say, medium to long term, but it doesn't perform very well on sideways markets. As you can see, there's a very small buy signal right here, but right after the price decreases a lot. So it is a good idea to use this signal with other indicators and even patterns to confirm your entries. However, this is also based on volatility or ATR, which is pretty useful. So let's say that you want to find a range for your grid bot. You want to set a lower price and a higher price. You can go here to this buy signal right here, which starts here. And then, of course, because you don't know if the price is gonna go up or down, you can take the last sell signal as a reference, and you could set up a range like this from the buy signal to the previous sell signal, and you would have this range, and then you would deploy your grid bot or set up your grid bot, and it would trade between this range, or to be more precise, between here and here. In this case, the price increased. When talking about stop losses, you can use this right here to set a stop loss. So let's say that you've bought a bit after the buy signal that was printed by the Supertrend. So let's say that you bought right here, then you can take a look at this line and then go down a bit, for example, around 1%, and then you could set a stop loss level right here. So if the trend reverses, you would actually have a stop loss here that takes into account the volatility, which means that if it hits this level, it will most likely go down. So that would actually be a pretty good level for a stop loss. And you can also, of course, do that with the ATR as well, but the Supertrend just makes it easier to view on the actual chart because it draws these lines. And for a take profit, you could use the previous sell level, or you could wait for a sell signal, which I don't usually recommend because you might not be able to catch that and they are not always super accurate. However, you can still use them to set your higher price. If it does go above the previous sell level and you would have set a take profit, then the bot would stop there. But if you do not set take profit level and you wait a bit, you might end up making a little bit more profit, and then you cancel the bot manually once you reach this price right here. So this is a pretty simple and easy to read indicator, as you can see. Now let's jump right here into the settings. If you go to inputs, you can see multiple things you can change, but especially the EMA period, which you can change. This one is the recommended, or at least the one that I use, which is 52. So you can change the EMA type from EMA to SMA, but the EMA will usually give a bit more weight to recent prices. And of course, you can also change the style. It already uses green for bull and red for bearish signals or trends. You can also use the Bollinger Bands, which are an indicator that uses a moving average and a standard deviation to create upper and lower bands around the current price, and these bands can be used as a range for setting buy and sell orders. There are multiple ways to read them. When the price goes above the upper band, it is considered overbought, and oversold below the lower band, which means that there can be a reversal, and when the price touches or crosses the lower band and then begins to move back towards the middle band, it may be a signal to buy. When the price touches or crosses the upper band and then begins to move back towards the middle band, it may also be a signal to sell. The Bollinger Band squeezes or contractions happen when the upper and lower bands move closer together, indicating a period of low volatility. This can be a sign that the market is about to experience a significant move, either upwards or downwards, and you can use other indicators to confirm the direction. When the Bollinger Bands move apart from each other, then there's a period of higher volatility. Looking again at the Cardano and USDT chart, this is a daily chart, again on Binance. I'm using the daily chart because one candle represents a day and therefore right here there's a 36% move. But if I were to use the 4-hour, it would be much harder to read, at least for trading bots, because there are very small moves, and then you would set a grid bot for a very small time frame. So if you use the daily here, it's easier to figure out a trading range for your grid bot, because as you can see from the lower band to the higher band, there's a much higher percentage difference. So if you are strictly taking a look at the Bollinger Bands, let's say you are trading on this area right here, if you are currently here, then you could take a look at this, and then you would go, the lower Bollinger Band is near 0.9976 and the higher Bollinger Band is around 1.34. So you could set that as a higher price and the other one as the lower price, and then your grid bot would trade on that range. But if you are using, for example, a 4-hour chart, you can also take a look at the Bollinger Bands in a different way. But of course, as you can see here, it is not as practical to set up a range because it would be very small. So what you could do is use previous levels as a reference. So let's say that the price decreased right here and you want to start a grid bot around this level, but then you saw that the price right here was also touching the upper band. So you could set a price range right here and use the 0.42 as the higher price, and then use the 0.2476 as the lower price. And as you can see, when the bands get closer, there are smaller price changes and less volatility, and when the space between the bands is much bigger, then there are slightly higher or bigger moves. For example, here you can see that this is increasing, then there's a contraction right here, and then the price increases, but this is not very clear on this one. So let's jump into the daily chart. So right here you can see there's a contraction right here, the bands move together and then they move apart each other, and there's a big move right here of 99%. You can also jump into the settings, but usually you can use the default options. On the inputs you can change the length, the standard deviation, the source, the offset, and you can also change the band's color if it makes easier for you to visualize it on the charts. EMAs and SMAs can be helpful to detect overall trends, and you can also use crossover points as reference levels for your range or for entry when they produce a buy signal, when a certain EMA crosses another EMA and is above a longer length EMA, MA, or even SMA. The length refers to the number of trading days, and you can change those numbers to suit your needs. A smaller length EMA will give more weight to recent prices, and therefore it will produce a buy signal when crossing a higher length EMA. The EMAs use a weighted average that places more importance or weight on the most recent data, while the SMAs treat all price data equally. Now let's again take a look at the chart. To add multiple MAs or SMAs, you can go and start typing 3 EMA, and then you have here multiple ones you can use. You can also use 4 EMA, and sometimes I use this one, or you can also use, for example, 2 EMA more 2 SMA. So here I'm using the 4 EMA, but in this case, if I open up the settings on the inputs, I'm only using the first, second, and third. So I'm using a 20 EMA, a 50 EMA, and a 200 EMA, and this one does not apply because I disable it. This is just a simple example, and you can obviously also change the colors and decide how much EMAs you want to use. So in this case we are using 3 EMAs. As you can see, the longer one is this one, which is 200, and it is in the color yellow. And then we have a red one and a green one. So the red would be the 50 EMA and the green would be the 20 EMA. So right here, as you can see, the yellow EMA, which is the 200 EMA, is good for longer trends, while the green and the red for medium to short trends. So let's say that you are following the price here of Cardano, and then you see right here that the green EMA, which is the 20 EMA, goes above the red EMA, which is the 50, that is a buy signal, but then it also goes above the yellow one, which is the 200, which increases the odds of it going upwards. And then what you see is an uptrend that goes right up here to 3 USDT. And then as you can see, the price goes down a bit, and once it crosses the yellow line, it starts going on a long downtrend and quite bearish. And then as you can see, there's multiple crossovers of the green and the red line. So you could have bought right here on this crossover, and then you could have sold right here. You wouldn't necessarily sold at the top, but that would give you a range right here of around 93%. However, if you are using grid bots, what you could use is the previous levels. So let's say that you've bought right here, and then you have the previous high, which is here. You could actually trade on this range. So you would put your lower price for your grid bot at 1.29, and then the higher price at 2.47. And there you go, you have a range where you can set up your grids. There's also another handy tool that you can use, which is the Fibonacci Retracements. These are levels that are based on the idea that markets tend to retrace a predictable portion of a move, after which they can continue in the original direction. Traders use the Fibonacci Retracements levels to set buy and sell orders based on the potential support and resistance levels, and you can also select a price range between these levels depending on how frequent you want your bots to trade. So you can trade between two of the lines, or actually set your range to be from the lower line up to the higher line. And you could also try to match the grid number with the Fibonacci retracement levels. However, that would not be 100% accurate, since most grid bots won't allow you to necessarily pick each individual price for each one of the grids. So this is the same Cardano USDT chart we've taken a look at previously, but now let's use the Fibonacci retracement. So if you don't have it right here, then you can click on here, get on Fibonacci tools, and then you will have the first one, which is Fibonacci retracements, or you can click Alt F as well. So let's suppose you start your bot here. What you want to do with the Fibonacci retracement is that you want to pick a low and then a high and draw those levels. So here you have it. Let's say that you start your bot around here and you want to set up a range. You could put the lower price at 0.24 and the higher price at 0.45 or 46, or you could, for example, trade a range between the higher Fibonacci line or level right here and the lower one right here, or at least that starts with the lower price. So for example, you could trade in between the 0.4074 or 0.2877, or you could trade, for example, between this range right here, this range right here, or you could go even from here to this one, depending on the current market conditions and also the settings that you want to use. But it is a useful tool to set up ranges as well. It is hard for you to set up grids that are at the same level of these Fibonacci retracement levels, because you can't simply control the grids. The grids are drawn with the same percentage difference or with the same value, so you can't usually decide in what levels you place your grids, because that's calculated by the grid bot you are using. It is still a useful tool nonetheless. Now let's say that you are using some of these indicators for your grid bots. If you are using more than one, it can get complicated, and that's why using a template or a sheet is very helpful. If you download this one from the link down in the description or the pinned comment, you can see right here, this is something that I've built, which is quite simple. So if you have a grid bot that has some backtesting results, you can put your backtesting results right here for the 3-day, 1 week and 1 month. Then I have here some conditions I would like to see on a pair to be considered for trading. And then right here is where the indicator starts. So I have the ones that I prefer to use, which are the Supertrend. So I have for the 4-hour Supertrend, 1-day Supertrend. This basically means that I usually like to start a bot in favor of a trend. So the best scenario scenario is that the coin goes up in an uptrend or goes bullish. And then also for the ATR, I usually use values for the 4 hours if I want to see the specific value, but I don't usually use this as a very precise way to calculate it, just as a reference. I usually also tend to take a look at the ATR on the daily chart and then see if the ATR is increasing or decreasing on the ATR percentile, but I don't usually that because it is not a value. Then I also look for volume spikes, but what you can do is download this template, add as much indicators as you want, or use the pre-existing model. And if you want to follow this step-by-step process, you can go here to the steps sheet, and it will have all of the steps from the first one to the last one that you can follow, and it is a full-fledged system. And then you have all of the previous videos here covering all of these topics, which are also available on my channel. These are just some indicators that can be very useful to set price ranges for grid bots, but also evaluate volatility, which are two of the most important aspects or factors when it comes to grid bot profitability. Some of these indicators can also be used for swing trading, day trading, or even trend following, but there are many other indicators you can use to evaluate market conditions and execute trades, and even use them for timing or starting your grid bots in the best possible time so that you make them more profitable. If you use other indicators, do let me know in the comment section down below. You can get your free grid bot template by using the link down in the description or pinned comment. This template is very useful to evaluate the crypto market in general, but then pick your grid pairs or your coins that you want to trade, and also calculate all of the bot settings such as the high price, the low price, and much more. You can use that template and follow along. If you want, you can follow the system that you will find inside the template itself with all of the steps that you need in order to start your grid trading bots, or you can just make a copy and then modify everything to suit and fit your needs. If you want to check out some of the best crypto trading bots, then you can also check the links in the description. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.